Welcome back to another episode of The Blueprint. I'm your host, Calvin Custance. Today I'd like to welcome to the show Coach Rob Townsend, the head basketball coach at Clintondale High School and assistant varsity coach at Fraser High School. He has been my JV baseball coach for 2 seasons, and I'm really looking forward to this interview. Welcome to the show, Coach.
So today we got Rob Townsend, the head varsity basketball coach at Clintondale and then assistant head coach or assistant baseball coach at my school, Fraser High School. And he was my JV coach for the past 2 years. So this is a very fun interview and one I've been looking forward to.
Yeah, this will be fun. Thank you, Calvin, for inviting me.
So first off, when did you start coaching and why did you get into this field?
So I started coaching my very first year of teaching. I always wanted to be a baseball coach, and to be brutally honest, teachers don't make a lot of money when they first start out. So when the freshman boys basketball position opened up at Clintondale High School, I took that as well. So back in the spring of 2000, I coached freshman baseball at Clintondale, and then in the fall of 2000, I picked up freshman basketball, and I worked my way up from there.
And so you mentioned that was your first coaching job. What was your first head coach of like a varsity or JV in this case? Like, when did you get your varsity basketball job?
Yeah, I started coaching varsity basketball, I think it was in 2008. It was about 15 years ago. I worked my way up 1 year as a freshman, 7 or 8, or 6 or 7 as a JV coach, and then the varsity coach for basketball. Let me step back. In 2003 and 2004, I was the girls varsity head coach at Clintondale as well. So I coached 2 seasons of the girls, and that was back when they were in the fall. And then I think it was 2008, maybe 2007, 2008, that school year, I picked up basketball. And then I think in 2013, maybe, I became the varsity baseball head coach at Clintondale.
What is it common for coaches to coach multiple sports and be like head coaches of multiple sports at the same time?
I do think it is common for them to coach multiple sports. I don't think that it's common necessarily to be head coaches of multiple sports necessarily. My high school coach, though, was a head coach of both baseball and basketball, coincidentally. So, I know it does happen. It's not rare.
Mm-hmm. So what's the harder sport to coach? Is baseball or like more physically taxing and like more time consuming?
Well, the basketball season is very, very long. It starts before Thanksgiving and it doesn't end until usually the middle of March. So I think it's the longest season. Baseball is mentally and emotionally taxing because of the weather situation. You know, you might have 3 games lined up and you don't end up playing any of those. And then you might have 5 games in 1 week because of makeups and stuff. So that's emotionally difficult. And you're in a gym when you're trying to play baseball. It's tough to practice baseball in the gym for more than a few days.
Mm-hmm. So kind of running with the weather topic. So what's your best ways to like get your team in like almost like a rhythm? Because obviously cancellations and stuff affects that. So like, what's the best way you as a coach find a way to balance that with trying to make sure the practices are intense and like that they're getting the best out of their work?
You're talking about for baseball?
Oh yeah, for baseball.
So I think just emphasizing the importance of doing the work, being creative in your drills, being challenging. You may remember last year we worked on diving. I got out a big old mat, and we were working on diving because we were inside for so long. So just to be creative and let the people have fun. And then I think the competition too. So we tried to get a lot of live at bats versus pitchers, so that there's some competition there as well.
I remember you had us doing like sliding with towels and stuff too. That turned into just people messing around, but that was pretty fun.
And that's okay because you're inside for so long, you got to have some fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember last year, because I was like, I had you as a coach for 2 years, but last year's team I feel like was super fun. Like we were good, but we also like it was a healthy balance of like we were focused and good, but we were also like having a lot of fun on the sidelines and in the dugouts and stuff.
And I think that's important, right? If you don't have fun, it makes it tough to be good. That's part of that combination.
Mm-hmm. So, what does an off season contain as as a baseball coach when you're coaching basketball? Do you focus at all on baseball, or are you just like 100% dialed in on basketball in the off season?
Well, as an assistant coach or as the JV coach, I didn't really focus on baseball. Um, at Clintondale, when I was doing both, yeah, we would do some workouts. When I would take the basketball team in the weight room, I'd have the baseball team go in the weight room, and they'd be throwing in a different part of the gym while we were running practice. So it was kind of running double duty at the same time. And then, of course, when we were doing our workouts for basketball, some of the baseball players would be a part of that as well.
So this is a more baseball oriented question, but obviously a lot of kids play travel. Like, how important do you think it is now that kids play travel during the off season for baseball?
Yeah, I think that if you want to be a competitive varsity player, you need to play travel ball. There are exceptions, somebody who's really fast or somebody that maybe throws really hard or something like that. But I think for the most part, it needs to be just because you got to play that level of competition. And unfortunately, the little leagues don't really have that level anymore. So many people have left the little leagues that that it's not effective competition to improve you, and you have to play good competition to get better.
Mm-hmm. So when running a tryout as the head coach, like how do you look at the players? Like what do you see in players that are like, oh, this kid could make the team, while like this kid isn't going to make the team? Like what do you look for when running tryouts?
So the first thing I look for is them playing catch. Are they comfortable catching the ball? Are they throwing the ball to their intended target, regularly hitting that target? And that is mostly for safety reasons. You get a few kids in there, and they may not be used to playing catch with somebody who throws harder, and so they're at risk to being hurt. So that's the first one. Then the second one becomes, how is their swing if they're a hitter? What does their swing look like? Does it look like they can get something done? If they're a pitcher, are they throwing strikes? What's their secondary pitches? Can they throw strikes with those secondary pitches? And then those last few are usually pretty tough. It comes down to roles. I mean, do we need more outfielders? Do we need more pitchers? Kind of stuff like that. So I'm not going to say that there's a one set way. It's just kind of getting a feel for what you think that group of players as a team needs.
Also running with that question, how do you like tell if they're an outfielder, infielder, or like if they have them like the multiple, like the versatility to play multiple positions? How do you like decide to stick them at one or the other?
Yeah. So how do you tell if they're infielder, outfielder? Usually it's their feet and their arm pattern. So if they have a long arm pattern, that's not going to cut it in the infield. If their hands are kind of hard or their feet are slow, not necessarily they run slow, but their feet are slow, laterally moving to the ball, then that's more of an outfielder. When you get kids in the outfield, try to check to see how do they run down the ball? How do they read a ball in the gap, whether they can catch it in the air or they got to get behind it and field it on the ground, stuff like that. And, positionally, I think you try to put most of the players in a position where they're going to do their best to succeed. And then you have one or two players that you think can adapt and play multiple positions. And, it might be a challenge for them a little bit, but it'll be what's best for the team. And I think that for the most part, kids have bought into that because they're getting playing time. So, okay, I'm not playing shortstop, I'm playing right field, but I'm in the lineup. It's better than sitting on the bench.
Yeah. What would you say is the most important skill that a player can have in terms of attractiveness to a head coach or like to earn playing time?
It's coachability. Can I teach you something and can you apply it? Are you willing to apply it? That's the big thing. I think is, you know, if a kid is very talented, but I can't teach him anything, he's not going to get any better. And sometimes, you get some players that are know-it-alls, and other times I think that they don't have the ability to take what you're saying and then physically move the way you're asking them to move.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the same in basketball as well. I mean, I think I don't know. I've never coached other sports, but I think that's probably a pretty good skill no matter the sport.
Yeah. What are some of the best drills or workouts that you use and obviously use coaching for pitching or arm velocity?
I'm sorry, did you say what are the best drills or workouts?
Yeah, what are the best drills
velocity?
or workouts for arm velocity?
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing is to lift weights and get stronger. Studies have shown that body weight is a big factor in throwing harder. I think taking care of your arm, and maybe it won't help you throw harder, but it does help prevent injuries. And so you doing your Jaeger band routine, things like that. People don't think of it this way, but your legs are very important, especially for pitching and throwing hard. And then for me, I think the best thing to throw hard is to practice throwing hard. And so I'm a big proponent of long toss and getting your arm out and extended. And, if you don't know what long toss is, basically you try to get you as far away from your partner as you can and still be able to get the ball to them in the air with a nice, easy throw. And then as you start coming in, you start throwing hard for 7 or 8 or 10 throws on the way in.
So
and some baseball people are very much opposed to long toss, but I think majority are probably either definitely in favor of it or they're fine with it.
Mm-hmm. So heading into a season, what are some of the goals that you set as a team and as a program, and how exactly does that, if you don't meet those goals, how does that affect your season?
I mean, I think it depends on the level. When I was a JV coach, my goal was to get guys ready for varsity. We probably lost a few games because I was putting people in different positions, both on the field and in different positions in the game, and they weren't used to those positions. And, they struggled, but I'd rather them struggle at the JV level and then at the varsity level succeed. When you get to the varsity level, you have to be realistic about your talent. I'm a big proponent of playing competition that will challenge you, but not overwhelm you. So coming into this season for basketball, we've had 2 down seasons back to back. So I was looking for competition that would be challenging, but that we would be able to compete in. So we played Fraser, and it was a 10-point game. It was a competitive game. We've won our other 4 games. One of them actually ended up being a pretty large win, but that was scheduled by the athletic conference. And the other games were, I think, 12 points or less. So there were games that were competitive, and that's how you get better.
Mm-hmm. And with basketball, what are some of the main, I don't know too much about the statistics and aspects of basketball, but do you run different plays and run different formations on the basketball team, and how can you elevate a team's level of talent as a coach besides because the players play the games, but how as a coach do you elevate the level of talent that you have on your team?
Yeah, I think you definitely do run different plays based on the talent that you have. I think if you can execute those plays and put the players in the best position for them to succeed based on their talent, you're going to succeed. If those players, either don't have the talent you thought they have, or they're unable to execute. For example, a kid that you think can shoot real well, and you get him a play where he's going to get an open shot and he misses it. At that point, that's just skill development, and you just got to keep working on the skill development. So I've always thought that there was 3 parts to basketball. There's the conditioning factor, there's the plays, and then there's the skill factor. And you have limited time in practice, so you've got to kind of splice those up. our skill level is a little lower than what it has been. So I've been spending more time in the last few seasons trying to develop skill. And these are things that you would hope would, by the time they get to varsity, they would have more skill. But it's not happening right now because we have a lot of influx of a lot of different students that aren't coming up through the system. So I've been spending a lot of time developing skill, dribbling, passing, shooting, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. So when you run a practice plan for both baseball and basketball, what do you gravitate towards focusing on for baseball? Because you mentioned what you do for basketball, but for baseball, like what exactly do you like focusing on depending on the team?
Well, I keep a chart of, I have a spreadsheet that I've made of the essential things for positional that a player at each position needs to have. And then essential team activities that they need to do, first and third situations and front defenses and relays. And so I make sure I try to hit those about once every 2 weeks, even if it's just for 5 minutes, just to kind of refresh everyone's mind. But then when you get into the games, you have different situations that arise and you're like, we need to work on that. And or we haven't spent enough time working on that. And so that will dictate a lot to what you need to go over. So and it's crazy how many times we work on something in practice and then in a upcoming game, either the next game or a couple of games down the road, it plays out. If you remember last year, we worked on plays at the plate. And then the very next game, we had a situation where it was a close game and we threw a guy out at the plate. And I remember a couple of the players saying, we just worked on this. How did you know? And it's just baseball. It's just these things pop up and you got to be prepared for that when they do.
Mm-hmm. What's the most effective way that you found to handle criticism? Because as a varsity head coach for basketball, obviously like the community, like some factors. And if you said like that you've underachieved the last couple seasons, what are some ways that you handle criticism without it affecting your team?
Yeah, I don't think anybody's going to criticize me more than I criticize myself. So I have the ability to not hear things, especially during a game. I'm so focused on the game, I don't hear the crowd. So it's not like it's a skill that I developed or anything. I've never really heard the crowd. So I'm fortunate in that way. But I am happy to explain any of the decision I made with anybody, and I make mistakes, and I'll explain why I did what I did, and if I thought it was a mistake, or if I would do the same thing again. Sometimes you do the right thing, and it just doesn't work out.
Mm-hmm. What do you do to improve yourself as a coach?
Constantly reading, talking to other coaches. I get email newsletters that they ship me videos every day or once a week for both sports, and just constantly taking it. You got to keep learning, and both games are changing, and you have to adjust with the games. So I'm fortunate at Clintondale. There's a lot of great coaches that are there. Scott Evans is the head baseball coach at Richmond. He's gone to a couple of state finals. Dave Schindler is the football coach. Right across the hall from me is Jason Mahalik. He's the defensive coordinator and the varsity baseball coach. So, very lucky that we have those kind of resources that I can just throw ideas off of.
Mm-hmm. So, everyone has a role model growing up. So who would you say was like the biggest role model growing up or starting to get into sports who helped you grow?
Well, I don't know that I really had one growing up, but as a coach, it's Scott Evans. He's a fantastic coach. Like I said, he coaches the varsity baseball team at Richmond. He was the varsity baseball coach at Clintondale for many years, while I was the freshman and JV coach. And so I learned a lot about coaching and how to handle players and how to handle parents and developing a team and unity. He's also a JV football coach. Was a JV football coach at Clintondale, and I think he is at Richmond or the freshman coach or something like that. So I've really looked up to him, respected him, and the way that he's gone about doing things. He's done it the right way, and he's had many talented teams, and he's done it the right way.
Mm-hmm. So what's the best season that you've had as a team, and walk me through that season?
So the best teams that I've had have not really done a whole bunch in terms of talent. Like my first year coaching, I had a very talented basketball team, and we won our league. And then in the very first round of districts, we played a country day team that had, I think, 5 Division I basketball players, a Division II basketball player, and then a kid that ended up playing in the NFL. So he was a heck of an athlete. Other teams that I had that were really good, we ran into, just ran into teams in the playoffs that were better than us. But some of the real special teams are the ones that aren't that talented, but they get the most out of it. So I had a team led by a point guard, Samaj Richardson, and I think we started the season 1-4 or 1-5. And during Christmas break, right about this time, we kind of sat and talked, and we totally changed our philosophy. Normally, we're a run and gun team, and we decided to walk it up and execute plays and slow the other team down, and it worked. And that team just gelled personality wise, and we ended up winning that year. We won our district. The next year, we won our league. So, it's a special group, and you can tell that they're close because when those young men now still come back often into the gym for practice or games. We had an alumni scrimmage, and probably over half of the players on the teams from those 2 years were there for the alumni scrimmage last 2 weeks ago. So it was a lot of fun, and you can just tell that closeness goes beyond the court or the baseball field, and it lasts a lifetime.
Yeah. So what motivates you to keep coaching now?
I really enjoy it. I love getting out there and teaching people. It keeps me active. It keeps me young. There are downsides, but the positives outweigh the negatives. It can be tiring. It can be exhausting. March, when basketball ends and you're still in the gym for a couple more weeks for baseball, I mean, that's mentally kind of draining. But once that weather breaks and we're outside, it's so much fun to be there. And I coached my son's teams growing up. He's now in high school. I love people that want to learn. And I was mentioning that I coached my son's teams, since they were 8 in baseball and basketball, and just watching those kids. There's a handful of them that they've been on the same team since they were 8. And just watching them learn and grow and take it all in and keep getting better. It's so fun and so rewarding. And, here they're in high school now, they're heading towards varsity baseball and varsity basketball and then, potentially college. So it's very rewarding to see that too. Mm-hmm. If I could say one more thing, going back to, you said a successful season. I read this somewhere, and a coach said, I won't know if my season's successful until 20 years because, it's not about the wins and losses. It's, have you helped make them better men? And I'm getting to that point now. I've been coaching long enough where I'm seeing those guys come back as fathers and businessmen and successful, not all of them, but a majority. And it's rewarding for sure. Mm-hmm.
So I got 2 more questions for you. One, what is your best advice for someone starting to get into the industry?
Be willing to learn. My first year, very quickly, I'm like, oh man. One, the way I was coached as a kid probably wasn't very good. And 2, I'm like, I better start learning. And then it became, they got that process. You don't know what you don't know. And then it's, that you don't know. And then you move on to trying to know what you know, and then finally continuing to learn about what you don't know. And I messed that saying up a little bit, but hopefully you get the idea.
Yeah, the general point gets across. Then my final question is...
Yeah, I still feel bad for those.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I feel bad for those players that had me early on because, boy, I wasn't very good.
Yeah, well,
and I'm still not that good, but I'm getting better.
Hey,
yeah, it is definitely a learning process.
Coach. You know what you're doing. You've helped me so much in my years playing for you.
Thank you.
And my final question is, what is a book that you would recommend people should read?
Man, there's so many of them. there's Atomic Habits.
Oh, I
I'm
have
reading
that. I
right now.
literally have that book right here. Right
Do
next to my
you?
desk.
Yeah, that's
That's
great.
funny.
Yeah,
Got for Christmas.
it's so tough because there's so many books, and I have a tough time remembering the names of the books or the people that wrote them. But I'm reading right now Mental Toughness Training for Sports by I think it's James Lair. Um, it just I get into more of a not necessarily specific to a sport, but more of the philosophy of mental toughness or visualization, things that apply um, to multiple sports, but also to life.
Mhm. All right, yeah, that's all I have for you, Coach. Do you have anything else while we're wrapping up to say here?
Calvin, I just want to thank you for this opportunity. You're doing such a great job, and as you know, I'm so proud of the work you put in and the progress you've made, both athletically but as a person. So I can't wait to see you in 20 years and meet your family coming back. That'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you, Coach. I really appreciate and I appreciate you doing this. This has been super fun.
Well, thanks for having me. I hope you have a great Christmas.
Thank you. Merry Christmas to you too.
Thanks.
I'd like to thank Coach Townsend for coming on to today's show. This was such a fun interview, and I really enjoyed it. Make sure to leave a like and a comment and catch up on any episodes that you've missed. As always, my name is Calvin Custance, and this is The Blueprint.